Look at that humongous leaf up there. That's a poison ivy leaf. Um, I believe that poison ivy can uptake CO2 almost better than any other plant alive. Uh, Giant ragweed is also really good at it. So what we're doing is we're making more food for plants we like less. And when I mow, the reason I'm showing you these different, this leaf here, anything I see that has that leaf on it, I'm going to mow it down if I can get the mower to it. Because that thing's just a million thorns. I think it's native. I haven't bothered to look it up. I've known that plant since I was a kid. I hate it. So I mow it. And this over here, see this real tall grass here? That's all Johnson grass. The grass between it is native. It's not native. It's European cool weather grass. It's what the white people first introduced when we plowed under the prairie. And then this other one, this is another grass. It's called Johnson grass, but it's not just all one grass. It crossbreeds with Milo, and it crossbreeds. It's just a great big hot weather grass. I just mowed this patch here about 10 days ago. And that Johnson grass there, by the next time I get down here to mow it, right now the tallest ones are just above waist high on me. And by the next time I get around to mowing it, it will probably be 8 feet tall, in that neighborhood. It'll be lots taller than me. I wouldn't go in it for nothing. And when I mow it, all of that Johnson grass is 50% carbon by dry weight. So when I mow it all and dump it down onto the ground and leave it there. And my theory is that that's good for the ground. And I've never seen any research on it, and I can't prove it. But I believe it. These things I'm telling you, like that poison ivy is really good at uptaking CO2. I tell you that because I've observed it. I've looked at poison ivy all my life. When I was a kid, and poison ivy I'm one of the most allergic people to this shit that you know. This stuff has tortured me throughout all the years of my life, so I'm really good at spotting it. Okay, when I was a kid, that right there would have been a really big poison ivy leaf. The three things are one leaf. They're leaflets. The one in the middle, the longest one, is about 2 1/4 inches long. Or if you do that in millimeters, that would be 60 millimeters long. And that one up there, shit, that thing's, I got no idea. 2, 4, 6, that's at least 7 inches long. You'd have to multiply that by 25, 350 millimeters. And that's just one leaflet. This plant loves this shit. And I'm not going to spray my land with poison to get rid of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and I'm going to mow the part of it that I want to use. Okay. I figure that poison ivy is doing what it's doing literally because the ecosystem needs it. I believe that the things that happen within the ecosystem are responses to available energy, responses to available nutrients, responses to atmospheric conditions, responses to nature. These things are all growing out here. We are too, but we don't like to admit that. And we're just sicker than a dog and all screaming bloody murder about health care. But that and over there, that's blackberries. I'll bet we got some too. See, but if I just didn't mow these, they'd own this whole body. They go all the way up to the top of the hill. And so I mow them. Okay, they're not blackberries yet, but they will be. They're about that big now. So these are rows. Anyway, there's more poison ivy. And this is in land that's frequently mowed and maintained. When I started mowing down here, from standing here, the only two things you could see were thorn trees and poison ivy. Period. No grass. No grass. thorn trees and poison ivy. That's all you could see. And I couldn't cross it. The only way I got to cross it was with that machine, which has the mowing deck out in front of me. And if I go slow enough, it doesn't blow it in my face. And that's how I got through this poison ivy. And I mow this one every time I'm down here. I mow it back against that fence. But it's all grown up in that fence and I can't get it out of it. So, and like I said earlier, I don't use poison on my land. I think that's immoral. And so I don't want poison ivy to own my land, so I do combat with it. And this is a never-ending battle. I'm not sure that Johnson grass isn't an asset, although the government hates it. The thing about Johnson grass is it's a ferocious weed in corn. And corn's a grass and Johnson grass is a grass. And anything that'll kill one of them will kill the other one. So the corn growers just hate that shit. So it's legally a noxious weed in Missouri. And if they catch it with it on your land and you're not doing something to manage it, like I mow it, that's legal. They have a legal right to come on with big trucks and spray tanks and spray poison all over your ground. And they can also fine you. So that's one thing about it. I'll be back. I wish I could make this video live, that is to say while mowing, but I'd have to have some kind of software that could recognize the mower's roar and pull it out, because you couldn't begin to hear me talk or hear anything else about it. That right there, that's steel trash deposited there by some former owner. That's white people's land management. That steel, at least it's not plastic, that steel will literally eventually be gone. It will be indetectable from earth. It's not stainless steel, and so it will completely return to its component parts, which is good. But it's hard to mow it. It's hard on mowers, and the crap that you're looking at out there in front of us was all overgrown over the top of it, so I couldn't see it. Now I've been mowing this place for over 20 years, but you'd be surprised how hard it is to learn where a thing like that is. Here's what we got. That's where we've been, and this is where we haven't been this round. Now, I talked to you in a previous video about how the woods will expand to take over all the grassland if allowed to. Okay, there's another poison ivy. That's a woody plant. It's an early invader. Back there, I can see what is probably a young hackberry, and so that's a pretty decent tree. I had to let them grow. I enjoy them in the woods, but this stuff, if not perennially mowed back, this woods would just, like what you see up there, would come back until there was none of that. And this biosphere is more productive with all this edge. This is what you call a savanna. This is grass and trees. And in terms of mammal body mass, this is the most productive biosphere on Earth. Not this particular one, but this version of biosphere. And so a lot of the purpose of mowing is to maintain it as a savanna. As I said in another video, fire and huge herds of grazers, bison and elk, are what used to maintain it. Fire was a big deal. And without fire, these woody plants will just continue to encroach. So the concept of rewilding, which means we just walk away and ignore it and we don't manage it, it's better off by itself, is false. Because this is stage one, okay? But it's a lousy stage one. Where are we? Where was I? This part's poison ivy. This part here is poison ivy. Okay. This is woodbine. It's a vine. It'll grow up. This here is an invasive. That's Amur honeysuckle. That's an invasive. It's a horrendous thing. You can see the bottom of it there. I've got another mowing machine that I'll be able to mow that down with, but not this one. This, which is the #1 ground cover here, is an invasive called Vinca vine, or there's some other name for it. That right there, that's that young hackberry I was telling you about. And so you'd get a few good plants, but if you just let this go wild for the next 25 to 50 years, you'd have more poison ivy than anything else. And I'm not exaggerating about these years. I've been out here 4 years. And my other farm, I let go wild, like everybody's talking about. Rewild, rewild, rewild. And it's the biggest fucking mess I ever made in my whole life. I will spend the rest of my life, and another friend of mine too, just trying to get it made back to where it's not, to where it'll support a decent amount of wildlife. This place does. If I could keep Bandit behind a fence, it'd support even more. The mower deck is hydraulic. So when I go over these, you can see there, all these things you see, that plant there, that plant there, that plant there, this plant here, that plant there, that plant there. That is all Amur honeysuckle. That's an invasive here. That one there, see the little wingy thingies hanging down? That's a box elder tree. It's a member of clan maple. That's my old friend, the thorn plant. If I'm able, I get in, this deck will mow wood up to 1 inch, trees up to 1 inch. So those of these that are under 1 inch, if I can reach them, I will mow them down. I have another machine that will mow trees up to 8 inches, and I will probably bring it down here later in the year when the ground is real hard. It's summer, late summer, and I'll attack these with it. A lot of this wood front looks like this. There's more of that box elder. Box elder is kind of a shit tree, but it's a native shit tree. And, you know, we've created a shit ecosystem, so anything that's native and produces food, those little seeds are edible for humans and for animals. You'd have to collect a hell of a lot of them, but on the other hand, it makes a hell of a lot. So, you know, these are really little. You get like a soft maple, silver maple, and they make individual seeds are as big as individual salted peanuts, or almost, not quite, but close. Anyway, the trouble with this hydraulic thing is that when you go down, it doesn't lift up the same coming back, and it took me years to learn that. So I had scalped a lot of this ground by coming back with the deck running, and it would cut everything down to and including the surface of the mud. So I finally learned now, before I back up, I'll lift that. I let it droop down over the hill face as we go in, and then I lift it up to back out so I don't scalp the ground. And these honeysuckles, this whole farm will be covered with these honeysuckles in 5 years probably, if nobody mowed it. I'm not very fond of this camera, but that's all right. This is that same spot. Let me back up here. Hang on. Okay, this is that same spot that I just showed you, all those honeysuckles. And I mowed one of them in the middle because I was able to reach it with the Ventrac. So, now this does not kill this plant. It will come back. It will come back hundreds of times. But it lost this much carbon and associated feedstuffs off its top. Its crown looks like that, and it's going to have to work pretty hard. And while it's doing that, something else that we like better might take root here. Say an oak tree. Oak trees take root here. Walnuts take root here. So if one of those would take root, it would shade this thing out, and then I would continue to mow this to defend the other tree. But you know, you wash your dishes every day. I mean, it's just another job that goes on forever. Um, so, that's the mine. Um, but that's how much of it that was on there. All those stalks there are the one plant, and they all came off of this. Where is it? I can't find it. Yeah, that. And they're all like that. You know, each one of them, you look at each one of them, they got a dozen, 14 stalks going down. That's one of the ways you can spot them for sure in the wild if you don't recognize the leaf pattern. And that vine there, see that big vine? That's probably poison ivy. We got really good poison ivy here. It's in excellent health. Here's another view. It's often hard to see slopes on video, and I don't know how well they show, but that's a pretty steep one right there. And that's where I just was, where I had to go down that slope with the Ventrac to mow that thing. Ventrac has fat wheels. It has 8 of them if I want to, and then it's really a crawler, but mostly I just work it on 4. And it has a digital slope gauge, so I know if I'm going to turn it over. In fact, it whistles at me if I get on too steep a slope, which is a good thing. This one here is a shingle oak. This is a small oak tree. It never gets too big, but it let's see if we can figure out where this comes from. Okay, yeah, that's that tree right there. No, that's not him. That's another hackberry, but he's in there right someplace. And probably right beside that hackberry. See, there's 2 trees there, one in the back and one in the front. Yeah, the back one's a shingle oak. It comes up here, and there's your shingle oak. There. They don't look like any other oak leaf that I know of. And they're really pretty. They make little acorns. The reason they got their name is because the wood splits broadly straight, and so they used to, the white people when they got here cut these down to make shingle or roofs out of. Ergo, shingle oak. Excuse me, I'm just negotiating with a bug. I like to make these little nooks back here. You can get back in the shade and hide, you know. I never hurt a shingle oak if I can help it. The shingle oaks out here on the edge of the woods, a lot of them go right down, have branches that come right down to the ground. And that behind that shingle oak with the little off-white blooms that are mostly spent, that's a rough leaf dogwood. It's native. That's another thing that the forest sends out at the edges to colonize. Those things make little clusters there, but they're a rather nice little tree. I don't let them take over the whole pasture like their ecological destination says they should, but I like to have them around out in the field corners and edges. There's just some more of it. Some of this has been mowed once. Some of it hasn't been mowed at all this year so far. I haven't gone far. I do everything slow. That's that very same shingle oak right there. We haven't gotten on, we're at the other side of it. That plant in front of us, right directly in front of the mower's nose hood there, with the little leaves about the size of raisins or something, little green leaves. That's a buckbrush. It has another name I can't think of right now. It makes little red berries that most of the animals aren't real crazy about, but along about late January, early February, when everything else is gone, they're still there, and all of a sudden everybody thinks they taste a lot better than they used to. So I don't bother them too much. I mean, I don't let them crowd out into the pasture, but if they're back here in the nooks, I like them, so I let those grow. Places like back here, I only mow once or maybe twice a year. I try to get in here if I see the amur honeysuckles coming on. But it's great. That's poison ivy, but it's not a big deal, and it's not really prospering. This is deeply shady most of the day, most days. This would be a really good spot to plant pawpaws. If I ever get any more pawpaws, I'll probably plant some in this very spot. But meanwhile, it does. I'm probably going to mow it tonight, but it doesn't need much mowing. It hadn't been mowed this year at all, and this may be the only time it gets it. Because with the shade, you know, these things just don't grow so fast, and it's a different ecosystem, and I'm not sure the fires would get back here. I'm not sure I need to get back here. This is kind of a questionable area. Right over this hill in front of us, the steep drop off, and then the space between us and the next woods, that's the creek. People who've known me for years know about my creek. It's not a very big creek, and it's a seasonal creek, but I love it very much. And so this forest, this entire woods we're in, lies along the creek, and the part you're looking at, like through that gap there, is on the other side of the creek. And we own that side too. I really like this spot. This was Gloria's farm, my late wife. She chose wisely, and I'm grateful that she left it for me. There's another native tree you'll get a lot of, which you just rewild by not mowing. That's called a honey locust. This thorn here, which is come on, phone. These thorns are 2/3 the length of my finger, or so, half, 2/3. There you go. And these are the thorns on the very, very outer end of the twigs. They get big when they go in closer. Now we're getting into the meat of it. That right there, you can see there's a stick beside a tree. That is a backlit chestnut tree, which I planted here from a seed probably 4 years ago. and I've been mowing around it ever since. It's almost getting tall enough it won't have to be mowed around anymore. But when it was a baby, it couldn't compete with all this grass. So that's one of my children. Meet Chester the Nut, whatever. There she is, ready to go to the prom, all mowed around and dressed up and fancy. You can see she's leaning out to the sun. I planted her in the shade. I got a bunch of them out there that I planted in the full sun, and none of them are ankle high on me yet. Full sun was too much for them. So, you pays your money and you takes your choice. This is crown vetch, this pink flower. Left to its own devices, this stuff will crowd out everything else in the whole pasture. The tall plant, they used to have yellow flowers. They're pretty much spent. There's a few yellow flowers left. That one there has some yellow flowers on it. That's a non-native invasive. That's wild parsnip. They're kind of obnoxious, but I have a feeling if you were desperate enough, you could probably harvest them and eat them. So I'm not sure they're all bad. But crown vetch is a terrible pasture invader. It'll kill all your grass. And the biggest advantage you have over it is that it doesn't particularly like to be mowed. So I'm just about to mow all the crown vetch you can see in here down. Now this strip that we're in is a strip that I have not mowed yet this year. I let strips grow quite up. You know, like this flower here, I'm not sure if it's native or European, but it's a nice little flower and the bees like it. You come down here the right time of day, that thing will be covered up with bees. And so I let those come up and bloom. The red clover, see, that is crown vetch, which is a legume. This is red clover, which is also a legume, but the red clover is an asset and the crown vetch is an enemy. So I try to always, once it reaches the time of year when red clover's in bloom, I try to arrange my mowing so that there's always red clover in bloom somewhere on the farm. I let that one over there grow up until it's got red clover in bloom before I mow this one that does have red clover in bloom, and so forth. Because bees love it. It's extremely good for the land. It's a wonderful plant, and it lives in harmony with grass. It'll just live right in there, and it won't kill the grass, and the grass won't kill it. It's an excellent grassland legume, and so, but this one here, they imported this to plant along highways where they just killed the ground completely to death, and this shit will grow in gravel, you know, but boy, turn it loose on real dirt and watch what it does. So that's what we've done. It's just another of our clever improvements on the ecosystem we found here. I can't think of one that works. That right there by the stake is a hickory tree of some kind. I believe that was just planted this year. That's really a clean looking stake. Hannah and a friend of hers planted a whole lot of trees this year for us, and that one's really looking good to be that new, but I think it is. That is a common milkweed, and that right up there is a common milkweed. So I'll be mowing around both of those, of course. It's getting late. I don't know how long I've recorded today, but we'll be finishing this project for the day. Since I will never be finished mowing, it doesn't matter where I stop on any given day. This is the sort of circumstance where I might mow a milkweed, because milkweeds are naturally occurring, and if I mostly leave them, unless I have a reason, I consider that acceptable. But you see that hickory tree over there, the mower deck will not fit between the milkweed and the hickory tree. So the only way I can mow towards the hickory tree is use the middle blade, which is the farthest forward of the three blades. And if I can't get close enough in there to get the grass to my satisfaction, I'll wind up mowing this particular one milkweed. This tree here is kind of puny. It's a chestnut. They're all the same age. It's taller than a lot, but it's got fewer branches, fewer leaves. Looks like it's probably doing less photosynthesizing, although I can't guarantee that. A lot of the people that I used to know on Twitter put fence around their trees and do all these other things. That's a good looking chestnut there. Let me see if I can find it in the viewfinder. There it is. There it is. The stake is growing up just to the left of the trunk of a chestnut, and that one and this one were planted the same day. This is all I do for them. I mow around them. I don't water them. I don't protect them from wildlife. I just mow around them. Root hog or die. I figure the ones that come through it alive have a head start on the high temperature future compared to the ones that need a bunch of babying. This one's a chestnut. It's at the oldest, only half as old as any of the. I mean, this one's a hickory nut, and it's only half as old as any of the chestnuts. That one back there, if you can see that stake, let's see if I can find it in the viewfinder. There it is. Okay. See, that's a new planting. It's probably a white oak. It's probably a year old, but right in front of it is one of those confounded Amur honeysuckles, 6 inches from it. We brought those over because they're pretty. Well, I mowed off as much of the honeysuckle as I could reach, but I've still got it. There's my little oak tree, and there's my enemy. So I'm going to pull him out by hand. Well, this one's a white oak, probably planted last year. This poor little sucker has got poison ivy growing up his trunk. And I don't do hand-to-hand combat with poison ivy. If I remember to, I'll get a pair of needle nose pliers and come out here and try to cut it. I used to have a pair of little trimmers in the Ventre toolbox, but I lost it. I need to get another one. But I won't touch that stuff even with my gloves on to pull it off there. So that tree's going to have to get by for another couple of weeks at best.